everybody, welcome to Carving It Up Live. I apologize right off the bat. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We don't normally come to you live from this time at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. If you're out shopping, if you're chilling at home eating Thanksgiving Day leftovers, we're glad you joined us today. We're gonna have a fun show with obviously NFL predictions. We do that every Friday in the show. We got Bryson's Bleak Bet. We got If I Were a Bettin Man, looking for my first 3-0 week of the season. It's been a down fake gambling season for me in 2024, to put it mildly. Also, of course, the upset of the week. This one is going to shock you guys, and I think I'm going to hit it right on the head this weekend. We've also got the Vol View, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, a spot where Tennessee can basically clinch their spot, stamp their ticket, ladies and gentlemen, to the college football playoff with the winner of the Commodores on Saturday. Get into that in the Vol View in about 45 minutes. Obviously, we'll talk Cowboys. An aspect of that game that I was actually quite impressed, and really the last 5 days, really impressed with Mike McCarthy. Get into that later in the show. Of course, touch on the Dolphins-Packers game as well. Green Bay getting a blowout win at home over the Dolphins, who obviously don't play very well in cold weather. Who in God's green earth could have seen that coming? You bloggers in Miami, you're talking about, it's a myth, this whole... Didn't look so good. Get into that in about 12 minutes on today's show. By the way, before I even say, but first, I did want to also say, wearing my Red Sox hoodie for good luck for Juan Soto. Also want to say, Santa Claus, football Santa Claus and basketball Santa Claus making their first appearance on Carving Up Live. We've been having these guys on, I think, since 2022, maybe. Yeah, these guys, we'll try and get them in a better position. We just kind of threw them together today, but very, very excited. My man Patrick Brown's in the comments. Shout out to Patrick. Happy Thanksgiving to you, my man. He says, happy Friday. New articles are available as well. Yes, Patrick wrote a couple of articles. Check those out on the Grid's website. You can Google the Grid Network website, and they are up on there, so definitely be sure to check those out. So let's get into some Thanksgiving Day football, baby. But first, so that's 10 in a row now. 10 in a row for the Detroit Lions. They keep doing what they've been doing all season long since the start of the season. But since week 3, 10 wins in a row, Dan Campbell.
Kneecap.
Listen, they bit kneecaps for Thanksgiving, but it wasn't in the traditional sense that the Detroit Lions tend to do. Final score 23-20 Lions. Give the Detroit credit. I thought they'd win this game. I think we all thought the Detroit Lions would win this game. I definitely took Chicago in the points. 9.5 was way too many in a division rivalry, national TV, Thanksgiving. Caleb Williams been playing amazing as of late. And by the way, I think he showed you a lot of things yesterday. Detroit, to me, is not the story. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Lions are next week against the Packers, beat-up roster. Detroit's not the story. They're great. We know they're great. We didn't find anything else. I thought they played their C-plus game. Still won. Kudos to them. The story is obviously the Chicago Bears and the fact that they need to fire Matt Eberflus effective immediately. The ending of that football game, in every sense of the word, was unforgivable, was indefensible. There is no way that you can possibly put yourself in a position where you look at Matt LaFleur, you look at the Chicago Bears, and how they close that football game and say, good call, coach. So for those that didn't see it, okay, the Bears had the ball, final drive. They got bailed out on a bad pass interference call in Detroit on a 4th down and long. Be that as it may, bad calls happen. It is what it is. There was a bad horse collar call on the Bears on a Jahmyr Gibbs play. The bad calls even themselves out over the course of a 60-minute football game. But we're in a spot with the Bears. They got a 2nd down and 20 from the Detroit Lions 35-yard line. So they are definitely in field goal range. There are 36 seconds left of the clock. The Bears have a timeout, and Caleb Williams takes a sack because the Bears O-line is just atrocious, and we talked about that all season long. He takes a sack. Caleb Williams goes down with 32 seconds left on the clock. Keep in mind the Bears have a timeout. Now, I'm seeing folks in the national media that are, I agree with their bottom line take that it was bad game management by Eberflus, but I disagree with how they would have approached it. See, folks are saying, Eberflus should have called timeout immediately. Totally disagree with that. My thing is, get to the line, get your play, get ready to go, run the play, hope that you get, because at this point, you're at the 41-yard line. Long field goal, but you're in field goal range. Let's see if we can get 10 more yards, make it a little bit easier on our kicker to make it certainly a tough field goal, but easier, right? Put ourselves in a position we can go to overtime. You run a play, you call timeout so that the kicker has a chance to take a breather. Dan Campbell's probably going to call timeout to ice him. There's going to be a lot of time between the last offensive play and the kick, as opposed to you call the timeout and you're tackled in bounds, or the line's going to play the sideline. You're probably going to play inbounds. Now the kicker's going to rush out there. It's just a discombobulated mess. Instead, it was an even bigger discombobulated mess because Caleb Williams goes down with 32 seconds. The Bears have a timeout. They run one more play, which Caleb Williams, kudos to him, has the presence of mind. I'm just going to throw something at the end zone towards Rome Odunze. It doesn't work. There's a number of reasons why this is a fireable offense, and we can go over them one by one. But what makes it even worse, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, because if you look at Chicago right now, you're like, okay, there's a world that exists where the Chicago Bears should be 8-4. If you want to say Minnesota, it was an onside kick, kind of a weird ending. Caleb was great, but again, onside kicks, you don't recover those. Fine, let's chalk that as a loss. They should have beaten Washington. Terrible execution on the Hail Mary. We can blame Tyreek Stevenson for being cocky and all that. That cannot happen if you're a head coach. And by the way, a defensive head coach, mind you, is Matt Eberflus. You also talk about the game against the Green Bay Packers. They outplayed Green Bay. Caleb Williams was better than Jordan Love, led the game-winning drive. They get into field goal range with 40 seconds left. It was a 50-plus yard field goal, I believe, for the Bears. Certainly no chip shot. They run one play, bleed it down to a few seconds, as opposed to trying to get maybe a little bit closer so that the field goal does not get blocked. And then you have the game mismanagement yesterday. What makes it even worse, Eberflus is taking no accountability. Listen to what he said after the game about how he handled the final half minute of that football game against the Detroit Lions yesterday. Take a listen.
Again, once it's under 7, you're gonna call timeout there, or actually under 12, and then really you don't have an option. Because it's 3rd to 4th, you got to throw it into the end zone then. So to me, it's I think we handled it the right way. I do believe that you just re-rack the play, get it in bounce, and call timeout, and that's why we held it, and didn't work out the way we wanted it to.
We handled it the right way? Excuse me? We handled it the right way. See, I have a lot more respect for Matt Eberflus, too. I'm sure, he seemed like a nice guy. I got nothing against the man personally. And I'm sure the Bears players don't either. They seem to like him. There was a point in time I thought the Bears had quit on Eberflus. I was wrong on that. They haven't quit on the guy. After the Washington game, and then they had a bad game against the Cardinals, I'm thinking, their spirit's broken. No. They could have easily beaten Green Bay, could have easily beaten Minnesota, could have easily beaten Detroit. All 3 divisional opponents, there's familiarity there, but still you're fighting against, at worst, good playoff teams and at best title contenders. So kudos to the Bears in that regard. That is the moment the coach takes accountability. That is the moment where he gets that is, we talk about quarterbacks, or at least I do all the time, and how important it is. You are the face of the franchise. You are representing the city, the front office, the locker room, everybody. You are the representative of that. You have to conduct yourself almost in like a statesman-like fashion. Well, the same applies to head coach. I'd say even in a higher regard, because these are majority of coaches, unless you're Sean McVay circa 2017, the coaches are all much older than the players, at least the head coach is in most instances. You got to get up there, step in for the media. We messed up. By the way, not that Matt Eberflus is telling us that he messed up. We didn't know ahead of time. We know. We'd respect him more if he took accountability as opposed to doubling down and saying, hey, you know what? That's how we intended to handle that. It's just discombobulation, disorganization. Caleb Williams doesn't know what we're calling. The Bears players like, what are we doing? We have a timeout. Are we going to use it? The kicker doesn't know if he's going to act as if, and that to me is the second thing with Eberflus. Especially when you look relative to the other coaches in that division. He's not only the worst coach in the NFC North, he's the worst coach by a mile in the NFC North. I think Dan Campbell's the best, followed closely by Matt LaFleur, followed very closely by Kevin O'Connell. All 3, in their own ways, exceptional coaches. What Kevin O'Connell's done with Sam Darnold is unbelievable. What Matt LaFleur did briefly with Malik Willis is incredible, and what he's done with Jordan Love's great. And obviously, we've all given Dan Campbell's flowers and how he's turned the Detroit Lions franchise around. You look at Matt Eberflus, what that sequence said, what the sequence at the end against Green Bay said, mismanaging the clock there, what the sequence against Washington, not just the Hail Mary, but folks forget about this, a couple of drives before for Chicago, ran the ball with a tackle at the 1-yard line who then proceeds to fumble. I think it was their center, interior offensive lineman. They didn't look prepared. They're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants right now. And it's reflected in Matt Eberflus's. Shout out to my man, Alfred Parsons Jr. I love you, bro. Put together this great graphic about Matt Eberflus. This says it all. Matt Eberflus, for those that are listening to the podcast, 5-19 in one-score games, 3-19 on the road, 2-13 in the NFC North. And I can make a case today that he's got, worst case, the second-best quarterback in his own division. Jared Goff is excellent, but Caleb Williams does things with the football. We saw it yesterday that most other humans cannot do. This is why he was the first pick in the draft. This is why I and a lot called him a generational talent. The arm angles, the movement. There's not that many guys. Mahomes has it. Allen has it. Rodgers in his prime had it. Just a zip. That thing comes out of his hand like bam. Just out. It's out to Keenan Allen, to others in a blink. Great arm strength. Now, the accuracy needs to improve. He's got to improve that in the offseason. I think a better offensive line would help that, but Caleb is still missing some throws that, franchise quarterbacks need to hit. But he's also making some throws that a lot of franchise quarterbacks can't make. Only the superstars do. Like, what this kid is doing is special. By the way, Stephen A. Smith gave this stat today, and it's quite unbelievable. This is amazing, guys. The Chicago Bears are the first team in the Super Bowl era to lose 6 games in a row without throwing a single interception. Think about how bad of a coach you got to be. If your quarterback is posting a passer rating over 100 in the last few games, has played great against a great Packers defense, against an exceptional Vikings defense led by Brian Flores, one of the best DCs in football, and then torching a Lions defense that has been unreal, second-ranked scoring defense in the NFL coming in this game. I've been waxing poetic about Ben Johnson, but Aaron Glenn has been amazing for that Lions defense. Caleb Williams, after a rough first half, was amazing in the second half. Passer rating over 100, 3 touchdowns. Could have easily tied the game if for competent coaching. It's disorganization. It's a lack of preparation. It's doubling down at the presser. It's the fact that for the life of him, he cannot win against the NFC North. He cannot win on the road, and he cannot win one-score games. We're 3 years into this, folks. It doesn't work. We see. If you watch the Chicago Bears, you think Caleb Williams is the problem, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not saying anybody's saying that, but you got your guy. Chicago, you've been desperate for a franchise quarterback for years. Bam, you got your guy, number 18, Caleb Williams out of USC. That's your guy. You've got weapons. You have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Dunze. You've got these guys. DeAndre Swift. Chicago is famous for great defenses. Get Ben Johnson. I've heard folks suggest Mike Vrabel. That would be a great hire, and I think Vrabel's great. I'd rather see Vrabel someone like Philadelphia. I think he'd be an amazing fit with the Eagles. Not that I'm pulling for Philadelphia, by the way. I'm just saying he'd be a great fit there. But you need a creative, offensive mind who knows the way of the NFL. Not an old school defensive coach who has a no feel for offense and no feel for basic game management situations. I mean, I've seen 12-year-olds on Madden manage the clock better than this guy did. Multiple times, like folks are just talking about this game. The Packers game was just as bad. So what is apparent is whether he's fired during the season, I think it's irrelevant because he's going to be fired at the end of the season. But people are going to look back and say, oh yeah, that was the moment. Thanksgiving Day, national audience, you're playing the Detroit Lions, who very well may represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and you choked. I mean, there's no other way around it. You fell apart. There's no question about that for Matt Eberflus. And Patrick hit the nail on the head. Incoming head coaches should play Madden to see if they can handle situational football. Yep. I'm telling you, folks, and again, here's what I would say. And this may sound arrogant, but I believe it to be true. To put it mildly, I don't know X's and O's like 100% of NFL coaches, to put it mildly. I can confidently say that there are coaches in the national, certainly in college football. Have you seen the clock management in college? Dear Lord. I can say confidently that there are coaches in the NFL I can manage a clock better than. I honest to God mean that. Can I coach a football team? Can I motivate them? Can I do X's and O's? No, they're the experts at that. But remember when Nathaniel Hackett in Denver had, by game 2 of his rookie season, or really his only season as a head coach in the NFL with the Denver Broncos, had to get like a game management assistant. I'm actually not against that for head coach. Now, it's a terrible look if 2 games in you hire him and it's like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But I'm not against that being an occupation for NFL teams, like just somebody upstairs but the coach and this said person has got to be on the same wavelength. And the reason I brought up Patrick's comment there is Madden does a good job of kind of teaching you how to, at least I guess sometimes you kind of learn on the fly, how to manage the clock, how to manage your timeouts, So, I mean, I disagree with a lot of people in the national media that are saying they should have called a timeout right there after the sack. Totally disagree. You run a play, you get to the line quickly, you run a play, see if you can get 10 yards or so, burn your timeout so that the kicker doesn't have to sprint on the field. Because if you call timeout, you get a completion inbounds. Now the kicker's got to fly out there and he's discombobulated. What happened was worst case scenario, but I think that would have been the better course of action for the Bears. Patrick also says, I thought Mike McCarthy's clock management was bad. That took the cake from Eberflus. Yeah. And by the way, for all of us bashing McCarthy, I'm actually going to give McCarthy some love in a couple segments from now after our first break. We could talk about McCarthy as won a Super Bowl, but that was a long time ago. McCarthy brings some solid aspects to the table. I mean, the thing that I gave McCarthy credit for all his faults, I gave him props for last year is with Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, the best season of his career. Like Mike McCarthy I kept saying, let Dak be Dak, let him throw deep balls and things of that nature. And he did that. Like McCarthy, again, his clock management is strange. You want to compare feel for the game, Eberflus to McCarthy? Come on. It's not even this. Listen, Eberflus may be a good defensive coordinator. By the way, if he gets another opportunity as a head coach, God bless him. I wouldn't hire him, but God bless him. I hope America is the land of second chances. So is the NFL. Sure, this isn't working. And when you have a quarterback this good, you're like, oh, we got to capitalize. We got to get the absolute most. We got to squeeze every drop of juice out of this fruit that is Caleb Williams. Because man, that kid's awesome. Remember that report that came out? Oh, the Bears should start Tyson Bagent. Like what? Huh? Excuse me? By the way, hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving yesterday. Enjoyed some time with family, some good food. I always enjoy the parade every year. I enjoy the Macy's parade in the morning, then the Lions game. We'll talk about the Cowboys after the first break. Let's shift to Green Bay and Miami. Because it had to be the single most predictable game of the NFL season. Let's see. Green Bay's on a roll. Jordan Love has looked better by the week. Second half resurgence, kind of like the end of last year. They're favored by 3.5 at home over a Dolphins team that is notoriously awful in the cold weather against a quarterback who's notoriously awful. Now, I will give Tua some props. I didn't think Tua was terrible yesterday. I actually thought Tua played fine. I mean, a pass rate of 114, 365, 2 touchdowns. I thought Tua was solid. Not even just by the numbers. I thought he was accurate. I thought he had some zip on the ball. I thought Tua was good. Green Bay, to me, again, it's a weird situation. Like the Lions game, the winning team is not the story. Like Green Bay did what they were supposed to do. They're at home. Yeah, it's a short week, but you're at home. It's at Lambeau, LaFleur. You're going to win that game. Love was great. Back-to-back games without a turnover for Jordan Love. And by the way, can we show you the Love stats real quick? Then we'll move on to the Dolphins. But Love, when throwing 10 or more yards down the field, was literally perfect. 10 for 10, 213 yards. According to PFF, one big-time throw and a touchdown. So Jordan Love was excellent last night, spreading it all over the field. The Packers receivers, Christian Watson, didn't have the bad case of the drops this week. Jaden Reed's doing his thing. It's a very talented Packers team that can be very, very dangerous, and we knew that coming into the season. For Miami, and I literally said this coming into this game on Wednesday. I said, listen, I don't trust Tua in the cold weather, but again, props Tua. Tua was fine. Like, Tua was not the problem yesterday. You could point to the Dolphins' defense. You could talk about the fact that the Dolphins could not run the football to save their lives. Here's to me where the Dolphins lost the game. The national anthem. You're like, the national anthem? I don't follow. When I was watching the national anthem on NBC, so the Cowboys game just ended, so I turned the TV to NBC. Okay, the Packers game about to start. They're doing the national anthem. And they all, they pan to the players and the coaches, and they got the big flag, across the field. And they show the Dolphins sideline. And that's when I knew it was over. There was 2 shots. There was a shot of Tua, hand over his heart, and he's got a big old jacket over him. I'm like, oh boy. By the way, you want to have a jacket during the game? Yeah, Jordan Love was doing it. Tua was doing it. Most quarterbacks do that when it's 27 degrees and it feels like 19. Like, of course, at Lambeau Field in late November, of course. That told me it's like, oh, okay, it's already gotten to him. Meanwhile, the Packers sideline, man, they've been here before. They're chilling. They're like, this is great. It's national anthem, Lambeau, primetime, Thanksgiving. They're cool as a cucumber. No pun intended. It was quite cold at Lambeau, per usual at this point of the season. And the second shot, and also at halftime as well, Mike McDaniel looked miserable. And I talked about this when they or on Wednesday's show when I referenced the playoff game. Maybe they went to Kansas City, and that I always say that's my favorite if I were a bet man I've ever done in my life. Kansas City -4, wild card game, Mahomes at home in a playoff game against the Dolphins, like bad cold weather team all day long. Kansas City -4.5. Point is, they showed Mike McDaniel throughout that playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He looks like he'd rather be literally anywhere else in the world, but on the sideline that night coaching against Kansas City in that playoff game because of the weather. Now, granted, I've never played football in -5-degree temperatures. Don't imagine it's, preferable. But you can't project it on your football team. By the way, cold in Green Bay last night, not as cold as Kansas City, to put it mildly, in that playoff game. Mike McDaniel looked cold. There was points, my sister, who's a Packers fan, were watching the game, and we both noticed it. His hand is like shivering as he's holding this play sheet. I'm like, oh God, this is the message that sends to your group, to your football team, is so demoralizing. And by the way, I think Mike McDaniel is a brilliant head coach. You come from the Shanahan tree, you're probably pretty good. McDaniel, D'Amico Ryans, different coaches, but still excellent. X and O's guys, great. Under perfect, ideal climate, circumstances, excellent. They can put 30 points in your head in a blink of an eye. It's not just the weather that played factor. It was the mindset. The leader of that locker room, the leader of that football team set the tone. He was freezing. Meanwhile, Matt LaFleur, which you can say the Packers are used to it, but it does matter. I mean, you think Andy Reid wasn't freezing his arse off during that playoff game in the playoffs? He got freaking icicles in his mustache. I've been here, done that. Let's just go win a playoff game. Matt LaFleur, I'm pacing the sidelines like I usually do, yelling at dog cussing refs and coaching, and McDaniel looked miserable. And that's when I knew the Dolphins were going to lose the game. Tua was good. Over 350 yards, couple touchdowns, passer rating of 100. Tua was good. I thought he was efficient. I thought he was accurate. I thought he had a good spin of the football. He didn't get a lot of help from his run game. Tua was good. The emotional letdown of seeing, and Dolphins, I'm curious to see how Dolphins fans feel about this. I'll put this on YouTube. Curious how they feel about this. But I noticed when I was watching the national anthem, McDaniel looked miserable and Tua had the coat on. I'm like, oh boy. Like, this is, they're going to show you during the star players during the anthem. And when you got the coat on, it's like, okay, ball ain't been kicked in there. The elements have already gotten to him. So as I'm watching that game, I'm thinking this is what was going to play them all along. Again, I think it was the most predictable result of the NFL season thus far. Green Bay, favorite at home, short week, Lambeau, Thanksgiving, rolling against a Dolphins team that, by the way, themselves have won 3 games in a row, have been playing well offensively. Tua was great against the Patriots on Sunday. He owns that team. But when the situation isn't absolutely ideal as it pertains to weather, they're cooked. And by the way, for the Dolphins, the rest of the season, right? Because they're certainly not mathematically dead. They're 5-7, a big gap between they and the Denver Broncos at 7-5. They're 2 games back, obviously, of Denver. Rest of their season for the Miami Dolphins. We can pull this up here, okay? Rest of the season for the Dolphins. Here's what I'm looking at. Home for the Jets, at the Texans, home for the Niners, at the Browns, at the Jets. A lot of winnable games. Jets twice. Okay, you could beat San Francisco. San Francisco's as vulnerable as ever. You could beat Cleveland unless Jameis has a classic Jameis gamer game. Here's what I'm looking at. Oh, okay. Cleveland, Sunday Night Football. Yeah, that's going to be chilly. It's going to be real cold. At the Jets, Tyrod Taylor's probably going to be the quarterback. Meadowlands, January 5th. It's probably going to be pretty chilly. Dolphins are done. Their goose is cooked. Yeah, Patrick Brown. Eating leftover brisket for brunch. We have I reference this all the time, folks. We have a group chat at the Grid Network. And please, by the way, subscribe to the Grid's YouTube channel and check out Patrick's articles on the Grid's website. But we have a group chat, and we did a segment at the end of the 8 o'clock spot. By the way, tune into that every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific time, the best sports game show out there. Our final topic was the ideal Thanksgiving meal. And we got into a big debate about, after the end of it in the group chat. And so we I forgot, it was either Barry Grant Jr., shout out to Barry. It was either Arthur Hurst, who's a new guy at the Grid, does a fantastic job. Shout out to Arthur. One of them suggested, I think it was Arthur, we need to post pictures of our Thanksgiving Day plates, like to compare and see what, Patrick's brisket. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all something. Listen, Patrick, I hope I'm not giving away anything. If you want to upload that thing to your IG stories or something, good Lord. I'm a brisket guy in a major way. I'm very picky about my brisket. That looked good. I'm not going to lie to y'all. That looks pretty freaking awesome. Patrick, you're going to have to visit sometime and you have to make that brisket. That looked amazing. I know brisket's probably not like a traditional Thanksgiving food. Don't give a dang. That looks good. All right. Be back. Appreciate everybody tuning in on this Black Friday, an early edition of Carving Up Live at noon. Volview tends to be our next segment on Fridays at about, 6:30, in this case, 12:30. We're going to postpone it about 12 to 15 minutes, or actually more like 10 to 12. Want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys after the break. I was actually very impressed with something that I saw, but at the same time, pump the brakes a little bit. Be back in a minute to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Thanksgiving. We love watching the Cowboys on Thanksgiving on Carving Up Live in just a minute. We have breaking news. Welcome back, everybody. We have breaking news from the NFL. We want to get the might as well get the little intro here. We got the breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Carving Up Live. Okay, so from this just broke just a second ago in the National Football League, the Chicago Bears have fired Matt Eberflus. This just broke from Adam Schefter. And Adam Schefter says, Black Friday, for the first time in the 100-plus year history of the franchise, the Chicago Bears have made an in-season head coaching change, firing Matt Eberflus. And so, by the way, Thomas Brown, who is the interim offensive coordinator, out here pulling Gerald Ford, presidential reference, by the way, for those who don't get the reference. Gerald Ford, only person never to be elected vice president and president, yet serve in both roles. Thomas Brown, not the original offensive coordinator. They fired Shane Waldron, and certainly not the original head coach. He going to serve in both positions. So Thomas Brown, the interim head coach of the Bears. What makes this really interesting, to put it mildly, this is from 8 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, rather. So 10 minutes ago, Matt Eberflus said, quote, he's confident he'll be coaching against the 49ers next week. The next minute, Schefter breaks the news that he's been fired. So Matt Eberflus gone from the Chicago Bears. So listen, we led the show off, literally led the show off talking about this, about how what he did yesterday was a fireable offense. What he's done all season long as it relates to bad late game management are fireable offenses. But yep, it is official. Matt Eberflus has been fired by the Chicago Bears. By the way, first time in the history of the Chicago Bears, once again, that they have fired a head coach mid-season. I think the last time there was a coaching change, I saw this on Get Up this morning on ESPN. The last time there was an in-season coaching change, not a firing, but an in-season coaching change for the Chicago Bears, George Halas, who went to serve in World War II. So, like, a different set of circumstances. You know, one went to serve his country, and the other guy, you know, obviously it didn't work out so well. So, once again, Matt Eberflus gone. Patrick Brown, again, man, oh man, we all knew Eberflus was cooked. Yeah, he was. It was only a matter of time. I didn't think it was going to matter one way or the other as it relates to the Bears, like making the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're cooked in the NFC. But, yeah, that was... I said during the show that we would all kind of look at this as the last straw, like Eberflus on national TV Thanksgiving Day against the Lions, the way that game ended, and the fact he was in the hot seat prior to that was a straw that broke the camel's back, and that will be known as the moment that he lost his job with the Chicago Bears. So, again, Thomas Brown, let's see what he's got. I'm always be careful about interim head coaches. We saw this with Antonio Pierce last year with the Las Vegas Raiders, and they decided to bring him back, which was a mistake this year. I've always called the interim head coach as the substitute teacher of the NFL. They come in, everybody lets their shoulders down, they're loose. You probably play, instead of doing the regular old class lesson, you probably play, you know, if you're in first grade, you probably play some board game. I don't know, Candyland, what do the kids play these days? Play some board game or some whatever. Everybody's having fun. That's the interim head coach. You're seeing with the New Orleans Saints, this Rizzo guy, I think, taking over the Saints. They're 2-0 now after firing Dennis Allen, and there would be a huge mistake to bring him back. Huge mistake. Same case. Like, I hope Thomas Brown does well. He's done a good job as the new offensive coordinator. By the way, if the Bears were to retain him as the OC, I got no problem with that. He's done a good job. To me, the Detroit Lions, I'm sorry, not the Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears need to go all out. Fit matters in the NFL. The Bears have been great on defense forever. They've never had, at least in recent history, had a smart offensive head coach. Go after Ben Johnson. Pull out all the stops. We are going to get Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, to help develop Caleb Williams and to be able to compete with the other offensive head coaches in his division. Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell. Go all out to get Ben Johnson if you are the Chicago Bears. But suggestions for the weeks. Now that Eberflus is gone, they'll be officially going after a new head coach this offseason. That's your guy. You go out and get Ben Johnson if you are the Chicago Bears. So there you go. Breaking news in the history. Unfortunate breaking news for Eberflus. Again, you never pull and see somebody lose their job at the end of the day. Results speak for themselves. The NFL is a results-driven business, and he wasn't bringing it. We can show you one more time before we go to the Cowboys. This tells the story right here for Eberflus. 5-19 in one-score games, 3-19 on the road, 2-13 in the NFC North. That's just that simple. He doesn't win games that matter, or that many games at all for that. I think 14-31 is his record with the Bears. So once again, Matt Eberflus has been fired. Here's who isn't going to get fired mid-season the way that folks had been speculating that he could be. Mike McCarthy, because the Dallas Cowboys won 2 games in a row. The Cowboys beating the Giants yesterday, by the way. How about them Cowboys? 2 in a row. How about them Cowboys? Yeah! Cowboys get done once again, 27-20 over the Giants. I took the Giants in an upset because Drew Lock was playing, and I'm like, hey. And by the way, Drew Lock ran in. The touchdown that was called back ended up being, stopped at the 1-yard line. Drew Lock ran in the touchdown first quarter. I'm thinking, and I tweeted this, Drew Lock legacy game. Here we go. It's like he did against Seattle or against Philadelphia last year to help screw up their season. That didn't work out so well. Drew Lock. I mean, he threw a pick six. It was more a great play by DeMarion Overshown. DeMarion Overshown, I believe is his name, who made a great play on the pick six. He's been with a few bright spots for the Cowboys this year. But Cooper Rush was efficient. Pass rating of 82, threw a touchdown. He was solid. Cowboys, for the first time all season long, actually ran the football really effectively. Rico Dowdle, 22 carries for a $112 and a touchdown this game. That's actually the first 100-yard rusher for the Dallas Cowboys. since week 3 of last year. Not that last year. Last time the Cowboys had a 100-yard rusher, which they had yesterday in Rico Dowdle. CeeDee Lamb had a rough day at the office. 2 catches for 39 and not 1, not 2, but 3 drops in this game. So, again, it's divisional matchup. These games tend to be close. The line reflected that. Dallas was able to mostly control that game throughout. The pick 6 was kind of the turning point, and they never looked back from there. Here's what I'll say about Dallas. And, again, Micah Parsons said this last night as it relates to the Cowboys playoff hopes. He's out of his mind. Listen to what Micah Parsons said.
To be honest, it's really been why not us. Everybody counted us out. And it was just like, enough's enough. We know what we got. We know what we can do here. And I believe in every one of these guys. And I believe we're going to turn around and make a run.
There was nothing wrong with what he said in that statement until the very end. They're not making a run. They're 5-7. The Dallas Cowboys in their next 5 games to close, or their last 5 games to close the season. They got a home day against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Bad record, great quarterback. Go to Carolina. The Panthers are playing better as of late. You host Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. You're not winning that game. You go to Philadelphia. You darn straight winning that game. And you host Washington. I mean, you beat them before on the road, so I guess you could win that game. The Cowboys are not making the playoffs. So they're done. ESPN has them like a 1% chance. They're not getting in. Here's what I'll say though. And I don't know if this is good news. It's good news for one individual. I don't know if it's great news for a whole host of people who call themselves Dallas Cowboys fans. Mike McCarthy's done a good job the last 2 games. And what I mean by that is Dallas this season was going in the wrong direction when Dak Prescott was healthy. It officially ended when his hamstring tore off the bone. When that happened, the Cowboys season officially came to an end for the 2024 campaign. So they get just embarrassed by Philadelphia, housed by the Houston Texans, who aren't playing that well as of late, by the way. And then you go to Washington as a double-digit dog. You win that game. You're a favorite at home against the Giants. Drew Lock, Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is better than Drew Lock, but these are 2 backup quarterbacks. Dable, I think, is a good coach. I get his record isn't good. I think Dable's a great coach. And you take care of business at home and you run the football effectively. What I've been most impressed with the Cowboys is pretty simple. They haven't quit. They have every reason to quit. They've dealt with injuries to their O-line, their quarterback. Brandon Cooks played his first game in a month and a half. CeeDee Lamb didn't play well in this game. His numbers still look good. He's CeeDee Lamb, but it hasn't had quite the best season. A lot of that is obviously the injury to Dak. The defense hasn't been good this year, but since Micah Parsons come back in the lineup and has really gotten his legs back underneath him, he's been great. Can I trust Micah Parsons over the course of a season against the wrong matchup to be great? No, that's been my biggest criticism of him. But when Micah's got the advantage, Micah is going to obliterate you, which he did against the Giants yesterday, and he was the best player in the field. There's no question about that. They haven't quit on Mike McCarthy. And that to me is a notch in his cap in the sense that I've always said this. You can lose a bunch of games in the NFL. You cannot lose the locker room. Matt Eberflus, who just got fired a few minutes ago as we're live on the show, probably lost the locker room after the game against the Detroit Lions. DJ Moore was questioning it. Caleb Williams tried to take, the diplomatic approach. Nobody was happy. Dan Campbell, prime example. Dan Campbell wasn't winning jack first season and a half in Detroit. They went 3-13-1 his first year. They start 1-6 his second year. We're thinking, oh, okay, now they're coached by the wayside in Detroit. Not only did not lose the locker room, I'd argue they grew closer in those losses. That seems to, not to the Dan Campbell extent, but in Dallas, they haven't quit on McCarthy. Their effort's been good. Micah Parsons has been excellent since he's come back. He's playing for pride. He's playing for a bag now. These Dallas Cowboys, they're not playing for a playoff spot. They're not going to get in. They're playing for pride. They're putting good tape out there. A lot of these guys won't be Cowboys next year. They're trying to put themselves in a position where other teams can look at film, add them to their roster. Look, don't be a bad player in a bad team. Don't put bad tape out there for a team that's already not very good. So I give Mike McCarthy credit. Now, I don't know if that's good news for Cowboys fans, especially given the fact that Jerry Jones says this week on Tuesday on his weekly radio appearance, Mike McCarthy, I do believe that's a Super Bowl winning head coach. Mike McCarthy might be back next year. Not great news for Cowboys fans. Now, as I've said many times, not entirely certain how attractive the Cowboys head coaching job is. You have a situation with your cap that isn't ideal. Your offensive line is your receiving core is abysmal, and the defense is what it is. They played well yesterday, but it is Drew Lock. Like, we got to put that in perspective. And you have most importantly, because there's coaches that are going to inherit bad teams, but the owners aren't going to be meddlers. Jerry Jones is the ultimate meddler to epic proportion. And so Jerry may see this. If the Cowboys go from 3-7 and finish 7-10, dare I say maybe 8-9, can the Cowboys reel 3 wins? Maybe. Listen, I didn't think they win another game the rest of the year, other than maybe Carolina or the Giants on Thanksgiving. I didn't think they'd win more than one more game the rest of the year. Well, they've won 2 in a row. They could beat Carolina. They're not beating Tampa Bay, and they're darn sure not beating Philly. I don't think they're beating Cincinnati. Could they beat Washington again? Sure, they could beat Washington again. Crazier things have happened. So I think right now you're in a spot with Dallas where Cowboys fans, listen, a win on Thanksgiving is always good. I'm sure Cowboys fans, majority rooting for the Cowboys to win. It's just human nature. You root for your team to win in most circumstances. But I think the fallout is going to be won the battle, lost the war. I don't think, and by the way, I want to say this too. I've always been clear on my position on McCarthy. I think he's a good coach. He's a good coach. I think he is. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the guys Jerry Jones has hired since he made the worst decision he's ever made in his life, in his professional life, in firing Jimmy Johnson, Mike McCarthy's been the best one. Oh, Barry Switzer. Barry Switzer won with Jimmy Johnson's roster, which just so happened to be maybe the most stacked roster in the history of the NFL, because they had the roster won 2 Super Bowls, and they added Deion Sanders to it. So, like, if you don't win a Super Bowl, you're a disaster as a coach. McCarthy has been, I don't think, arguably, and I think inarguably, the most successful head coach with the Dallas Cowboys since Jimmy Johnson. Because, again, Switzer, nothing against Barry, God bless him, that was Jimmy's roster. And so those things can be true. Dak Prescott, best season of his career with Mike McCarthy. McCarthy can coach offense. He's not incompetent. He's not, Brandon Staley coaching defense where he doesn't know what he's doing. McCarthy can coach offense. I think he turns a blind eye to analytics. I think he completely ignores them. As I always say, you should use analytics. Don't let them drive every decision you make. But if you ignore them, you're doing yourself a giant disservice. I think McCarthy does turn a blind eye to analytics. His running games have never been great. Going back to Green Bay and Dallas, that's kind of been his blind spot as well. He's a good coach. Situational game management, bad. It's not ideal. So, listen, if this continues, if Dallas, even if the games they lose Cincinnati a couple of Monday nights from now, but it's close and Joe Burrow has to play really well in order to win, if games look like this the rest of the year for the Cowboys, I think we see a scenario in which Mike McCarthy's back as head coach. Well, Bryson didn't extend him. They waited until the 11th hour to pay Dak. They waited until the 10th hour to pay CeeDee Lamb. They're probably going to wait until the 10th hour to pay Micah Parsons next year. This is just how Jerry Jones does business. I've just kind of grown to accept it. It's not smart. It's not forward thinking, but that's the reality. That's what he does. I think McCarthy's back next year, folks. I know my Cowboy fan friends won't want to hear that. I think McCarthy's back next year as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That's not ideal. Not ideal. Patrick, did Lions lose another defensive player to injury? Oh, that was devastating. Malcolm Rodriguez done with an ACL, and I did see this before the show started. They're signing Quan Alexander. So, yeah, bringing some extra depth. Listen, the fact that the Lions have been as good as they've been defensively since Aiden Hutchinson went down is, to me, one of the bigger shocks of the NFL. And I think it's a credit to Aaron Glenn, who's done an amazing job as their DC. And the players as well. They still got some talented players. Brian Branch, they added Zadarius Smith, Anzalone. They got some talented players. Patrick, no coach wants to be there as long as Jerry is front and center. Coach Prime wouldn't tolerate Jerry speaking of the team before him. Whatever happens beyond, I'm at peace. Listen, I've said, I did the segment on it last week. I think it was last week, that hiring Deion Sanders would be a mistake. And I think Deion Sanders, by the way, is an exceptional college coach. What he's done with Colorado is amazing. What he did with Madison. Jackson State was great. Deion Sanders coached college football. Leave no doubt about that. And I have deep respect for him as a man, as about how he goes about his business. He's who he is. He's not going to apologize for it. He is there to he truly believes he has his life calling to mentor young men, which, by the way, you can do that to a degree in the NFL, but it's really not your job. That's, if you want to talk about mentors to young men in the NFL, that's more position coaches than anything. You're around your position coaches more than you're around the head coach. So, and Deion Sanders ain't gonna be no position coach. Come on now. He's Deion Sanders. Most college coaches don't work in the NFL. There's the distraction of Jerry. I'm of the mindset, if you get Deion Sanders, that's because you got Shedeur Sanders, which would be a disaster. Now, they're not going to get Shedeur now because they've won 5 games. They're not going to get a high enough pick to get him unless they just give up a king's ransom. If they were to like trade Micah Parsons for the first pick, which they won't do. But I think Deion Sanders is off the table now for the Cowboys. Belichick, I think, would be a gigantic mistake. I think we have a big enough sample size for Bill Belichick since Brady left. Bad at putting coaching staffs together, awful at personnel, and believes in a style of football that doesn't win today. Basically one where the quarterback is like the side piece. Belichick could be a mistake. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm going all in to steal Mike Vrabel from the Philadelphia Eagles. Which Philadelphia should fire Nick Sirianni. I've been clear about that. They're winning in spite of him. And Kellen Moore, by the way. A Nick Sirianni mistake is going to cost the Philadelphia Eagles the playoffs. Guarantee that. And Patrick says, not to mention Coach Prime has landed some stat recruits in the last few days as well as 2025. Yep. Crown achievement with those being that quarterback, that 5-star quarterback that they landed. That makes me think, I thought, honestly, after this year, Deion Sanders was going to go to Florida State. Alma mater, the stars have aligned. Norvell's going to be gone. Like, that would have been, he gets to rebuild another program, just like, and that's his thing, rebuilding bad programs. Florida State's an iconic program. I'm saying currently bad. He did it with James Madison. The JM confuses me. Jackson State, or JM, whatever. Jackson State. Okay, he rebuilt a dump in Colorado into, they're not going to make the playoff, but there was a point in time where it looked like they were going to, and they're going to be still a 9-win team. Like, who would have seen that coming? He could rebuild Florida State. Now that they've landed these recruits, now again, he could still leave and bring the recruits with him. He could still do that, but that does seem to lend to the idea that he's probably coming back to Boulder next year, which good for those fans. I think is great. Yeah, Patrick, my Seminoles had the golden opportunity to hire Prime, but didn't. Yeah, that was a mistake from the athletic program in a major, major way. Deion at Florida. Listen, nothing against Colorado. I'm sure the fans of Boulder are great. The atmosphere seems fun. Man, Deion in Tallahassee, that would have been fun. Like, that would have been. You think Deion's a big story now in college football? Had he gone there? Oh my gosh. With the ACC being what it is, which is not the Big Ten and SEC, that would have been fun. All right, the Vols. Speaking of college football, it's a great segue because it's the last weekend of the college football regular season. Obviously, Army-Navy is a regular season game, but same time, we've got a slate of big games in college football. Headlined by Texas A&M. The winner of that game will play Georgia in the SEC championship game. I got Texas, by the way, winning that. A&M, what happened against Auburn? Weird things happen at Jordan-Hare after dark. Weird things happen. I don't know if it's some ghosts, some divine intervention. Weird stuff happens at Jordan-Hare. Ohio State, Michigan, best rivalry in college football. Ohio State's going to roll Michigan. But you look up and down college football. South Carolina, Clemson, big game for both teams. South Carolina, if we're going to talk about a 3-win team, a 3-loss team in the SEC that should make the playoff, it ain't Alabama. It's South Carolina. Like, let's. I'm not exactly a Gamecock defender here, but South Carolina should get in, or at least have a case to get in. They should certainly be ranked higher than Alabama. Like, let's stop with this. I have a sick feeling the Tide are going to somehow find a way to sneak in because of the CFP bias. Be that as it may. Some ranked matchups in here, Kansas State, Iowa State. But you know what I want to talk about. I want to talk about my Vols. I want to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers, who, all things that have happened over the course of the season, it is this simple. You win on Saturday, you're in the college football playoff. And so, let's get started. The Volview starts right now. And as always, baby, it's football time in Tennessee.
You're darn right. It's football time in Tennessee.
in Tennessee.
Oh, yes, it is. So Tennessee is staying within state. Their in-state rivalry quite one-sided. If it's that one side, I don't think it's much rivalry. Point is, Tennessee's going on the road to Nashville, one of my favorite cities in America. I love Nashville, to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. At Vanderbilt, the Tennessee Vols are 11-point favorites in this game. So before we talk about the game, I did want to talk about sort of just a quick sort of overview of the season. So this was a year for Tennessee where I thought coming in, they would finish somewhere around the 8-9 seed in the SEC. Or the SEC, in the college football playoff. I think I had Notre Dame in that area. By the way, Tennessee, Notre Dame could still play in the college football playoff. I like Tennessee in that matchup if they were to square off. But I have almost predicted Tennessee's season, just as it relates to results, to a T. 10-2, not quite good enough to get in the SEC title game, but a good enough strength of schedule, good enough resume. You get in the playoff, you could potentially host a playoff game, and they're a win away from putting themselves smack dab in the middle in the college football playoff. So they got help last week. I talked about this last week on the Vol View. Tennessee played UTEP. They were supposed to get the job done. But some things needed to happen ahead of them. They just did. And what I thought, you go back and look on the show. I said, keep an eye on Gainesville, Florida, my most hated enemy. Our most hated enemy as Tennessee fans, as Vol Nation, the gosh darn Florida Gators. But I said, Ole Miss, yes, it's a big game for them. Ole Miss wants to keep themselves in the playoff mix. But this DJ Lagway kid, I'm nervous about this kid moving forward, especially next year when we go to Gainesville, where we are literally cursed as a program. DJ Lagway, he good. He real good. Big kid, can move, big arm. Upset LSU the week prior. And son of a gun, for the first time in my life, I pulled for the Florida Gators on Saturday, and I was not disappointed. Now, I will have to call out some of my friends in Vol Nation. The Gator chomp at Neyland Stadium, bit much. Didn't love that. We can pull for Florida for the benefit of Tennessee. There's nothing wrong with that. No Gator chomp. Let's make sure we never, ever, ever, ever do that again. With that said, they got additional help. Alabama was ahead of them. Shouldn't have been. Lost badly to Oklahoma, who, by the way, Tennessee crushed. So, and by the way, another things, A&M lost. They were behind Tennessee, but A&M lost. There was crazy things happening in college football. Here's what I know about the Tennessee Volunteers as it relates to their season. Let's just put it this way. They have inarguably a top 5 defense in college football. When you look at, if we could pull up the numbers here on my phone, when you look at what Tennessee's done this year, okay? Third down defense, tops in the SEC, 5th in the country. Total defense, 2nd in the SEC, 6th in the country. Scoring defense, 2nd in the SEC, 4th in the country. Tackles for loss, 3rd in the SEC, 6th in the United States of America in college football. Tennessee is a top 5 defense in the country. James Pierce is going to be a top 10 draft pick, or at least he should be. Unbelievable pass rusher. Dylan Sampson, single season touchdown leader in the history of Tennessee Volunteers. He broke a 95-year record in order to set that mark. What it comes down to for Tennessee is this. Go with what got you there. Pittsburgh Steelers-esque. We're going to run the football. We're going to dominate you up front on both sides of the ball. We have some ball hawks on defense like Jermon McCoy, who can get his hands on the football and make some plays potentially with it. And Nico Iamaleava. I've seen growth. I've seen progression. There are points this season, such as the early season loss to Arkansas. Late game, looked a little green, a little nervous. Feet got a little bit, the moment looked just a little bit too big for him. True freshman, essentially. Now, even that game against Georgia where Tennessee got shut out in the second half, lost by 2 touchdowns, he seemed calm. He didn't turn the football over. He was efficient. He didn't look like the moment's too big for him. That is key for an opportunity for Tennessee to potentially make a playoff run. And this is the biggest game anybody on that squad's ever played. Anybody in that squad's ever played. It's the biggest game for the Tennessee Volunteer football program in 2 decades. I believe that. You could make a case South Carolina 2 years ago when they laid an egg against the Gamecocks but this is it. On the road against as difficult a Vanderbilt Commodores team as Tennessee has played in quite some time. So Vanderbilt 6-5, they're bowl eligible. This kid, Diego Pavia, the New Mexico State was New Mexico State transfer. This kid he can play. He's got some moxie. He's got, again, a little bit of, I keep saying, I use this to describe Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston. He's got a gamer in him. He's going to play hard. He's going to run the football. He's going to push it down the field. He's going to beat you with the deep ball like he did when Vanderbilt upset, at the time, the number 1 team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide, when they nearly upset Texas at home. And by the way, they gave LSU problems in Death Valley. The Tigers won that game by 7. So this is a Vanderbilt team that's well coached, that has pride, that looks at themselves in the mirror and say, we beat Alabama. We could have easily beaten Texas. We're not scared of Tennessee. We can beat these guys. Vanderbilt ain't scared of you, Vols. You got to come in ready to go, ready to execute. Noon kickoff, or really 11 a.m. kickoff Central Time in Nashville. You got to ride Dylan Sampson. Got to work with the play action. You got to hit the deep ball because they going to hit you with the deep ball. I think this is actually be kind of a competitive football game. Vanderbilt would love nothing more than to cap off what's been one of their best seasons in program history. Upset number 1 for the first time in the history of Vanderbilt. Could have easily been Texas. All these different things. To put yourself in position to upset Tennessee, your in-state rival, big brother who's owned you forever. The Vols got to know that coming in. They got a big old target on their back. I think they recognize that. I think this is a high-scoring output for the Tennessee offense. I liked what I saw last week against UTEP. It is UTEP. I get that. Expect to see a lot of Brew McCoy down the red zone, a lot of Dylan Sampson, and defensively, a whole lot of James Pierce. Give me the Vols, obviously. 34-20. They do cover 11 points. Not crazy about that line, but Tennessee does win 34-20 over Vanderbilt. They do cover, and in doing so, the Tennessee Volunteers punch their ticket to the college football playoff, the first 12-team college football playoff ever. And at that point, they got to wait for results around college football tomorrow and next week in the conference title games to see, hey, we know we're in the playoff. Do we get a home game at old Rocky Top in Neyland Stadium, Knoxville, Tennessee, Knox Vegas on Rocky Top? Let me tell you something. I've been in Neyland Stadium many times, including this season. That place gets loud, to put it mildly. I've heard games against Florida, the decibel level. I've heard games against Georgia, the decibel level. I was there for Alabama, couldn't hear myself think. You think that's loud? You think that's loud? By the way, my dad just corrected me. It says 9-1. It should say Tennessee 10-1. It should say 9-2. My apologies. 9-2 Tennessee. You want to talk about loud. You want to talk about loud. If Tennessee gets in Indiana, old cocky, Signetti coming in there, or if they get a Penn State who hasn't played anybody and has struggled against average competition, woo, that Rocky Top going to be roaring for 60 minutes. But that's not a guarantee yet. It's not a possibility unless you beat Vanderbilt, which I think Tennessee will. They'll get the job done and take home the title over Vanderbilt. Gets 10-2. I apologize. That graphic's a 9-1. Should say 9-2. My bad. But Tennessee gets double-digit wins, second time in the last 3 seasons under Josh Heupel, and they'll get the job done 34-20 and clinch their spot in the CFP. Got a couple of comments here from Patrick before we get out of here for the Vol View. Patrick says Peyton Manning, the great Peyton Manning, the sheriff, should commentate a Vols game. That would be pretty cool and very entertaining. Hey, I listen, you won't find a much bigger Peyton Manning fan than me, or really than all of Vol Nation. We love the guy, of course, and I love the Manning cast with him and Eli. So, hey, I would love to hear Peyton. He's been the broadcast booth for some Tennessee games in the past, but like for a whole game, I'd like to see him. So, that is it for this week's edition, as big as ever, of the Vol View. And once again, tomorrow, still in the state of Tennessee, it's going to be football time there, baby. Football time in Tennessee. Go Vols. Let's get to the playoff, baby.
You're darn right. It's football time in Tennessee.
It's football time in Tennessee.
Never ceases to give me chills. The voice of the late, great John Ward, the voice of the Vols for many, many years in the 20th century. Real quick, by the way, he was able to correct this graphic. Tennessee 9-2. I'm not out here saying one of the games was like fixed or something. I apologize for that, but Tennessee get the job done. I do see a comment here though by my man Patrick Brown, and he is spot on the money. Shout out to Patrick. Travis Hunter not being a finalist for the Thorpe Award is a crime. Coach Prime, let it be known his feelings about the snub. My dad showed me that video yesterday when we were watching the Lions game. And it was, by the way, I'm looking at my phone right now. Travis Hunter scored a touchdown. What a surprise. He does that a lot. I love what Deion Sanders said. He said, shoot, they can have mine. I'll give them my Thorpe Award. No, it is... The man is the best player in college football. I don't know if he'll win the Heisman. He would get my vote, but I understand those that would go Ashton Genty. He's doing something that a running back, we have not seen a running back do in college football since, I believe, the greatest running back ever, Barry Sanders. This guy is that's a personal vendetta that the college football media has against Deion Sanders. That's the only explanation I can have of it, because that is. He's the best corner in the country. The man may be about to be the top pick in the draft, and he's not a finalist for the award specifically for his position. I explained that. He's going to be a finalist for the Heisman, but not a finalist for the best player at his own position. College football media never cease to really confuse us all. And that includes you too, college football playoff. Again, how is Alabama 13th? But please explain this to me. 3 losses, 2 of them bad. South Carolina has a better, maybe not a better resume than Alabama as it relates to their best win. It doesn't stack up to Bama's best win. Bama beat Georgia. We get that. But South Carolina's been playing better as of late. Again, this is just absurd. I mean, BYU's been on a skid. I think BYU's been playing better than Alabama as of late. They have been. That is, boy, the playoff committee's bias, man. It is something else. You get housed on the road against an Oklahoma team that had 1 FBS win in 2 months, and you still have an outside chance to get in the playoff. I think I saw something like 23%. Like, what? Yeah, if their logo was Iowa State, you think that's the case? Come on now. All right. Okay, this is Friday. NFL predictions. We love them to close out the week with Bryce's Bleak Bet, with the ups of the week, which I think is going to catch everybody all by surprise. Ups of the week. I'm looking forward to getting to that. And of course, my favorite segment that I do every Friday show. It is called If I Were a Bettin Man. There's 3 games I do each week. The games that if I were a betting man, I would feel quite confident in predicting. So let's go and get the background music going on to Week 13 NFL predictions. I'm 2-1 thus far. 2-1, against the spread. I took Chicago in the points, took the Giants in the points and a win. That was, a mistake on both fronts. And then I took the Packers to cover yesterday. So 2-1 both fronts, looking to add to that and get better. So we actually got a game today, actually in a couple of hours, between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs, an AFC West matchup in which the Chiefs are favored by 13.5 points. So here's the thing for Kansas City. Here's what I will say. They have been a bad covering team this year. And listen, I explained it on Monday's show. I think folks are acting like, oh my God, they're just being teamed by the skin of their teeth. Even the Panthers almost beat. They are bored. I watched my Warriors do it. I watched Steph, KD, Clay, Draymond when they were terrorizing the entire sport. They go through the motions. They're not taking the Kings seriously or a road game in Orlando. Okay, tomato. Well, what does it matter? And if that sucker's close, with 5 minutes to go, get the ball number 30, get the ball number 35. If you want to kick it to Clay, do that too. Or if Iguodala, as Max Kellerman would say, man over my shoulder, great book, 6 man, hits a big shot, just get out of the way and let the greats go to work. That's just what they do. Get out of the way, let number 15 go to work, and he will do it for you, just like Steph and Clay and KD did back in the day for the Warriors. So they're a bad covering team. With that said, the Chiefs are a bad covering team. The Raiders are a bad football team. Antonio Pierce said as much yesterday in his press conference. He said, hey, let's just keep it real. It's the worst team in the league against the best team in the league, which is, I don't imagine going to inspire a whole heck of a lot of confidence in this group. Listen, this actually happened to be the last time the Chiefs lost at Arrowhead Stadium was to these Raiders. I'd argue that got Antonio Pierce the job, which he very well may not retain after this year. Here's the thing for Kansas City. Pacheco's back, Eminehu's back. So that is huge. DeAndre Hopkins has been playing better as of late. Really, the numbers show for Patrick Mahomes. Since DeAndre Hopkins has come back, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in football. Touchdown interception ratio is great. The pass rating is over 100. Mahomes has been playing exceptional football over the last month or so. So, I mean, this is an easy pick. Not necessarily an easy... I wouldn't put this on if I were a Bettin Man. 13.5 is a ton of points in a divisional matchup, but the Raiders really are that bad. Give me the Chiefs minus 13.5 to win this game by 14, 31-17. The Raiders are just awful. They're awful. I think it's Aiden O'Connell today, who happened to be the quarterback who beat the Chiefs. He didn't do much in that game, but he was the quarterback for the Raiders when they beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs last lost at Arrowhead. Kansas City wins this game 31-17. Like, what? Come on, let's not mess around here. To Sunday's games, the Colts and the Patriots, Indianapolis, New England. Boy, we used to see some all-time matchups back in the day when obviously Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were going at it. Particularly those games in January. The Colts in Foxborough are 2.5-point favorites. So here's the thing. Listen, I really liked the Patriots +7 at Miami last week. I know the Dolphins own New England. They always have throughout their history. Even when Brady and Belichick were running the league, the Dolphins still found a way to beat the Patriots many, many times. Drake May is such a fascinating prospect. He'll make a play with his legs or out to the pocket, or he's got a rocket arm where you're like, oh my God. This kid's, he might be better than Caleb and Jaden and Bo and all these guys. And then he'll throw a pick like, what is this? What is he doing? What is he doing? Obviously, I'll give him, in many aspects, the benefit of the doubt because he has virtually nothing to work with. Anthony Richardson cannot say the same story. Josh Downs is beat up. We'll see if he goes in this game. But you still got Michael Pittman. You still got Jonathan Taylor. You still got a good, solid tight end, great O-line, and a brilliant offensive head coach in Shane Steichen. They're 5-7. They didn't play well against Detroit last week. Guess what? Most people don't. That's why the Lions have won 10 games in a row at New England. Again, at this point in the season, games do get a little bit easier. You'll see spoilers. Don't get me wrong. It's still the NFL. Most of these games come down to the wire. But the haves and the have-nots start to separate. I'm not going to sit here and act like I think the Colts are going to make the playoffs because I didn't think they'd make it before the season because I don't trust Anthony Richardson as it relates to his accuracy. But just on a talent and a coaching advantage, give me the Colts in this matchup, 23-19 over the Patriots. Close game. I mean, New England will compete. They're at home, but Colts minus 2.5 and to win this one, 23-19 over the New England Patriots. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's the one game each and every week that I've absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. LA Chargers, Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers are favored -1 in Atlanta. I again, went back and forth on this one because on one side of the coin, you say the Chargers lost the game to the Ravens, a game in which they led 10-0, could have easily lost to the Cincinnati Bengals before Justin Herbert came up clutch in the end. Here's why I say it's dangerous for the Chargers. This is a bit of a must-win spot because A, the Broncos are on your heels, and B, you got the Chiefs next week at Arrowhead. Now, you can win that game. If you tell me Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert go to Arrowhead and win, won't be surprised at all. It's a great quarterback, great coach, good defense that's tailed off a little bit as of late. Lamar cooks most defenses, well, except for the Steelers, Chiefs in the playoffs. But Lamar cooks most defenses. On the other side of the coin for Atlanta, though, you say, well, the Chargers are on a short week, and they're coming to the East Coast, and they're coming down south to Atlanta. The Falcons are not only off a bye, but off of an embarrassing loss. They got rocked by the Denver Broncos on the road. Denver win that game is not a surprise. Winning the game, was it 38-6? I think it was. Unacceptable in every way, shape, and form for Atlanta. Again, went back and forth on this. What it came down to for me is this is going to be a close game. I trust in the fourth quarter the LA Chargers defense to get a stop before I trust Atlanta's defense, which despite, they added Matthew Judon, they still can't get pressure on the quarterback. They add Justin Simmons, they still are terrible against the pass. Give me the Chargers in this game, 27-23 over the Atlanta Falcons. They do cover the point there, but this is not. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals. I will confess, as a Steelers game, almost the Bryson Bleak bet game. So you got Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin on extra rest, but the Bengals are coming off a bye week of their own, which they desperately needed. 4-7, desperate, and with the way the Broncos and the Chargers, second place, the AFC North is going to be the 5 seed. So right now it's Chargers, Broncos. Could the Dolphins give chase? I don't think so, because they're going to play 2 more cold weather games. The Bengals are, to me, the strongest candidate, not Indianapolis. The Bengals are the strongest candidate to maybe make a run at the end of the year, because Joe Burrow has been playing simply out of this world great. So is Jamar Chase. So that scares me as a Steelers fan in Cincinnati. What makes me feel better? It's Mike Tomlin with extra rest. It's Mike Tomlin as a field goal underdog. Those numbers tend to lean in the Steelers' favor. It's Russell Wilson's deep ball against one of the weakest pass defenses and pass rushes in NFL. Hendricks is great. He's fantastic. Everybody else, terrible. I think this is a close game, as all AFC North games. Screw that. As all Steelers games are. Russell throws a dime to Pat Freiermuth to win the game for Pittsburgh. Give me the Steelers over the Bengals, 24-21 in another close game. Pittsburgh +3. Listen, Joe Burrow scares the piss out of me. That guy's awesome. And so is Jamar Chase. But the Pittsburgh Steelers would get it done. TJ Watt gets a sack, or it's a sack and a half. The Steelers need to get some rush. As talented as that defensive line is, and I came in a few weeks ago saying this is the best D-line in football. We traded for Preston Smith with Nick Herbig and Highsmith, and obviously the man himself, TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward. The Steelers are not getting the quarterback at the rate that they need to be getting at. So with the Bengals O-line, I want to see them getting after Joe Burrow. I think that's going to be getting a play factor and be the difference in this game. 100%. Jeff's, my bad. Yeah. Jeff mentioned that they have a great tight end. I mentioned to bring up Mitchell, as you said. You said Shane Steichen's a great offensive head coach when he's been horrible. Totally disagree. I think he's working with a nothing burger at the quarterback position. Patrick Brown, this is a crosswords game for Cincinnati. I expect this game to be very close. Well, and by the way, I said all Steelers games are close. So are all Bengals games. Joe Burrow can throw for 475 and 5 tuds with no turnovers, and the Bengals can still find a way to lose the game. All right, it is now time for my favorite segment every week. It is simply titled
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bettin Man. Man, this is a good one. The Seattle Seahawks going to New York to play to take on the New York Jets. Now the Jets are coming off a bye, and you know what I say? Great coaches and great teams off of byes, very scary. Unfortunately, the Jets do not qualify for either of those. Looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to play. There was rumors that they might put him on IR because he's injured. He's got is it a hamstring problem? It's something different. By the way, I did see this as well for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers was talking recently about the problems with the Jets, and of course it was the weather against the Broncos, and then it was the coach After the game against the Vikings, then it was the receiver. One guy got traded to Pittsburgh, immediately caught a game-winning touchdown against the Washington Commanders. They had Devontae Adams, who's done next to nothing. Then it was the vibes. Then the vibes were a problem for the Jets, and so they need to have better vibes, and then they lost to the Patriots. And then it was Cayenne Pepper, which was going to turn their season around, and it did for a game because they were able to get the job done against the Texans, and then they proceeded to get blasted the next game. Now Aaron Rodgers has diagnosed a new problem. The Jets have snitches in the franchise. With Saleh getting fired, with Joe Douglas getting fired. Too many snitches within the New York Jets organization. Meanwhile, Seattle's coming off of 2 very impressive wins on the road in San Francisco. Geno Smith running in the game when he touchdown. And then at home against the Cardinals. I really liked the Cardinals in that game. They're off a bye, and then Kyler throws as bad of a pick six as you'll ever see. Seattle's going on the road. I get it. West Coast coming to East Coast. Tend to stay away from those games. Vegas lines tend to favor the East Coast team. The problem is this East Coast team's one of the 4 worst teams in football. Give me the Seahawks. They're playing great defense. They'll continue that. Give me the Seahawks -1.5. If I were a bet man, Seahawks -1.5, and obviously to win this game, 28-13 over the New York Jets. What are we talking about here? This is free money. We're giving that free money at Carving Up Live. If I were a bet man, and if you're a bet man or woman, to take the Seahawks -1.5 over the New York Football Jets. Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, AFC South matchup. It's a weird one. See, the Texans are favored -3.5 on the road in Jacksonville. And my man, Trevor Lawrence is back this week after a bye for the Jaguars, who are terrible. Their record says that. Having the worst quarterback in football, Mac Jones, didn't help their cause. But nonetheless, they were not good when Trevor was there. And Trevor had been playing better in his previous starts. Heck, a little bit of stinker through a bad pick at the end to lose the game against Philadelphia. Would have looked like they were going to come back and win because of some Nick Sirianni coaching decisions. Point of that being is the Houston Texans themselves aren't playing well at all. CJ Stroud has been a shell of what he was a season ago. Didn't turn the ball over at all last year. I think he's 4 picks all season. And he's already got 7 interceptions this year, as well as some fumbles to add on to this as well. Okay, Joe Mixon has been the bright spot. Nico Collins is a freak. He's amazing. And outside of him, now that Stephon Diggs is down, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, these guys have not stepped up for this offense. Again, they've got Mechie, who's more special teams guy. Okay. This Texans O-line has gotten absolutely blitzed. I will say this, though, in defense of the Texans O-line, they were bad last year, and CJ was far better than this year, so CJ's got to take a lot of the blame. Houston's not a good team to take to cover right now. I'm actually going to go with the Jaguars, the points. Texans to win outright. Divisional game close, 22-19. Kind of an ugly game. The Texans win in Jacksonville. But Trevor's back in the lineup. Trevor has had a lot of success this career against the Houston Texans. I think that continues. Could he be rusty? Potentially. That's on the board, but at the same time, it's not. No, I wouldn't be crazy about this pick one way or the other. Patrick Brown. Ayahuasca Rodgers crying snitches in the Jets organization. Funny, considering he himself is flexing Pat McAfee every week for something ignorant. If anyone is a snitch, it's him. You don't say. The red line. Mike Williams, got to stay on that red line. Cardinals and Vikings from Minnesota. This also just so happens to be, again, as I always say, my favorite segment every week. It is called, once again,
Bettin Man.
Vira Bet Man. Once again, Cardinals, Vikings. From Minnesota, the Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Arizona, I was really high on them in the last few weeks, especially get up to 6-4 start. They're out here blowing teams out, bad teams out, but you got to blow the bad teams out if you're a team trying to prove yourself. You got to blow out the Bears after a brutal loss. You got to blow out the Jets, all those different things. That loss in Seattle was bad. I get it's on the road. I get the Seahawks are trying to tie you for the lead in the division, all those different things. But Kyler was bad. Again, the pick six was brutal. They couldn't generate anything offensively. Their defense showed up to the party. Their defense was excellent and could get the Vikings problem this game potentially. Here's what I'll say. Minnesota, this game's going to be played on December 1st, the first day of December. They have not played a home game in the month. Their last home game was November 3rd, a Sunday night game in which they beat the Indianapolis Colts. They've been dying, and we know when it comes to home field advantages, U.S. Bank Stadium is one of the 3 or 4 loudest stadiums in the NFL. That is as big of a home field advantage as there is in football. And with Arizona, the lull off that game in Seattle. Listen, they may come out and put up a big-time fight, win the game, maybe. I really like the Vikings in this matchup. Sam Darnold has been playing better. You know, the pumpkin mode hasn't showed up yet. Showed up against the Jaguars, I'll tell you that much. Yikes. But it's coming. I don't trust Sam Darnold as far as I can throw him. And he can throw a football very far, by the way. But Kevin O'Connell's going to do his thing. Brian Flores, tough day at the offense against the Bears, but Caleb Williams has been balling. Kyler Murray has not, certainly to that level. If I were a bet man, take the Vikings -3.5 and to win this game over the Arizona Cardinals 24-17. Vikings 24, Cardinals 17. Okay. Tennessee Titans and the Washington Commanders. This happens to be, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the freeze. Okay, I thought it froze there. This happens to be, ladies and gentlemen, my upset of the week. Give me the Titans. 26-23 over the Washington Commanders. Tennessee +5.5 and a win this puppy outright. 2 upsets in a row for Tennessee. And here is why. I am not liking what I'm seeing for the Washington Commanders right now. We know their defense is limited. We've known that all season long. Jaden Daniels has not been good. 3 touchdowns, 3 picks in his last 3 games. Passer rating in the 70s has fallen off massively. I don't know if the rib injury that he suffered in that game earlier in the season against Carolina is lingering, if that's still bothering him, but he's not been efficient. Prior to the 4th quarter against the Dallas Cowboys, sub 100 yards passing. So that's, and again, they lost the game to Dallas. Dallas was better than them. Dallas wasn't great in that game, but Dallas outplayed Washington. If the kicker, Austin Seibert, would have been able to make a routine extra point after Terry McLaurin makes maybe the play of the year in the NFL, breaking away from 17 Cowboys for an 86-yard touchdown. They would have stolen the game. Kudos to them. I've not liked what I've seen from this Commanders offense. Listen, we can blame it on a lot of things. Cliff Kingsbury, those second half collapses, Texas Tech, the Arizona Cardinals. Now he's doing it as the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. Wouldn't shock me at all. At all. But the old curse of the terrible towel, ladies and gentlemen, they disrespected one of the most sacred tenets and mascots, if you will, of the National Football League, the terrible towel. Did Washington, they have not won a football game since. Reminds me of what the Jaguars did last year, desecrated the terrible towel, and their season went to hell quickly. Meanwhile, for Tennessee, Will Levis, last few starts, got a pass ring of 92. He's been pretty good. I'm a Will Levis skeptic, probably the biggest one out there. I think he's incredibly immature. I think his decision-making, you even saw it against Houston, even in his good games, he'll throw a god-awful pass that goes back the other way. This Titans defense is legit and has been legit all season long. They get to the quarterback. They've got a good secondary. Listen, this is a Washington defense is struggling offensively against a Titans defense that's riding high that has been playing well overwhelmingly over the course of the season. And Will Levis against a bad Washington defense, Will Levis has been fine. If he doesn't screw up the game and throw 2 to 3 picks, Tennessee's in good shape. Give me the Titans, ladies and gentlemen, in an upset over the Commanders, 26-23. Tennessee. It's going to be a good weekend for the state of Tennessee, unless you're a Vanderbilt fan, I guess. The Vols will upset the Commodores. Upset the Commodores. Take care of business against the Commodores. Get in the college football playoff, and the Titans will get the job done 26-23 over the Washington Commanders. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers, NFC South matchup from Charlotte. The Buccaneers are 5.5-point favorites on the road. Went back and forth on this one as it relates to the line, because the fact of the matter is that Carolina has played better over the last 3 games. Okay, they beat a team in New Orleans that's played better since they got an interim head coach. Carolina beating the Saints led to Dennis Allen losing his job. Bryce Young, in his last 5 starts, passer rating's gotten better every single game. Passer rating in the 90s against the Kansas City Chiefs. So he's been good. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay, that was my favorite bet, if I were a bet man, last week on the road at the Giants, the whole DeVito stuff. Tampa Bay got Mike Evans back. Baker Mayfield's going to do his thing. They were desperate for a win. That was an easy -6 for Tampa Bay last week. Mike Evans back, we understand that. But it's a divisional matchup. There's familiarity. Bryce Young's playing better. Tampa Bay does not have a good defense. So all of those things being considered, I like Carolina in the points this game. Buccaneers win. They're the better team. Baker's the better quarterback. But I could see a spot where it takes like a game, like it's similar to Kansas City last week. Game-winning drive. Baker drives them down, and they walk it off with the gun. This is a spot where Tampa Bay's got to be really, really careful. Really careful. So yeah, definitely give me the Buccaneers in the spot 23-21 over the Carolina Panthers. What do we got next? Los Angeles Rams, New Orleans Saints from New Orleans, the site of Super Bowl 59. The Rams are 2.5-point favorites. Listen, again, substitute teacher syndrome. We're probably about to see it with the Chicago Bears. We've seen it with the New Orleans Saints with this Rizzo guy. Okay, there's the Saints are giving, doing T-shirts, and it's fun. It's they shouldn't hire this guy to be their head coach. I'm vehemently against hiring interims to be a head coach in most circumstances. For the Rams, again, just keeping pace in the NFC West, trying to do what they got to do to steal that division, which I still think they're going to. That was my preseason pick. I'm sticking with it. I'm a believer in Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay until proven otherwise. You saw earlier, I think the Seahawks will beat the Jets. So the Rams need to win this game to keep pace. Listen, Derek Carr has actually played well as of late. Taysom Hill channeled his inner Saquon Barkley / Lamar Jack. Taysom Hill, we know he's the jack of all trades. He was out of this world in the Saints' last win before their bye. I imagine the Saints will use him more often in this game against the Rams as well. A defense that got run all over by Saquon Barkley. But then again, Saquon Barkley does that to most people. Like the matchup, Rams on the road. And by the way, it's a 4:05 kick, or really 3:05 Central Time kickoff, but 4:05 on the East Coast. That's about when the Rams kick off. That's the body clock. This is when their bodies are used to playing football games. Give me the Rams in the spot, 26-20. Close game, as most NFL games are, obviously. -2.5, and then win this game over the New Orleans Saints, 26-20. Rams over New Orleans to get to 500. Boy, game of the weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens from Baltimore, Maryland. The Ravens are favored at -3. So we know the home team used to get 3 points. Now they essentially get about 2.5 points in the NFL these days. But this is as good as it gets. So these are teams that offensively play very, very similar, just as it relates to physicality. They love to run the football the whole bit. These are the two best running backs in the sport. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley going at it. It is going to be a smash mouth, punch you in the throat game for the ages. And the fact that Jim Nantz is on the call, a game for the ages. Shout out to the great Jim Nantz and Romo, who did a great job yesterday in Detroit. So, again, classic spot, go back and forth. Didn't buy Philly's defense coming into the season. Sold a little stock on the Ravens just by the fact that they lost the best defensive coordinator, or second best defensive coordinator, Spags, in football last year. Obviously, Mike McDonald, to the Seattle Seahawks. Baltimore's defense, though, has played better as of late. If you look at their last couple of games, again, they held Pittsburgh to 6 field goals. Some of that's more just Pittsburgh than anything, and the fact that Russell Wilson threw maybe the worst interception of the NFL season down in the red zone. That and like 3 Will Levis picks and Jordan Love's end zone pick against the Rams. Point is, give them credit there, and they were able to end up going on a 30-13 run to close the game against the Los Angeles Chargers after spotting LA 10 points. Without Roquan Smith, by the way, which I found very impressive. At home. But Saquon Barkley's on a mission. Right now, I think this is your MVP of the league. You got 2 MVP frontrunners, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson. Lamar is not playing the Steelers. He is not playing the Chiefs. He is not in the playoffs. Therefore, he is likely to be great. By the way, despite how great this Eagles defense has been, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, these have been godsends to this Eagles defense. The loss of Brandon Graham is going to hurt this team. I actually think this is an A.J. Brown breakout game. They're going to be so intent on stopping number 26. Dear God, don't go for 250 on us like you did on the Rams. We're going to go all out on stopping Saquon Barkley, and Saquon will get his. He can have a touchdown or 2. I think this is going to be a Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown deep ball showcase. Give me the Eagles in the upset to get to 10 wins, 30-24, 8 straight dubs for Philadelphia. Philly +3, and to win this game outright, 30-24 over the Baltimore Ravens. Again, is this rooting interest? Obviously, because I want the Steelers to create some separation with the Ravens. Of course, that factors in, but also I think this defense is playing with its hair on fire. I think, again, the Brandon Graham loss hurts, but the secondary has been nothing short of outstanding. Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown will be the key matchup in this game. Dallas Goedert, too, as well on third downs. Jeff is just pissed off. He's just pissed off about the Will Levis thing, bro. It's the Tennessee Titans quarterback. Chill. And Jeff is not going to like this. The San Francisco 49ers and the Buffalo Bills to close out Sunday Night Football, December 1st. Bills are favored -7. So Nick Bosa's probably not going to play. We have no clue if Purdy's going to play. The line hasn't moved. I made the mistake. I didn't check the line right after the 49ers, after the 49ers game was over against Green Bay and see where it opened as it relates to where it is now. It seems like, hey, Kyle Shanahan seemed to be implying Purdy should be good to go next week. We have no idea. What I do know is that Purdy's not able to go. Put Dobbs out there, dang it. At least he can run. At least he fits the Shanahan offense better than Brandon Allen. Dobbs has won games in this league. He's beaten teams like the Atlanta Falcons. He's beaten the Dallas Cowboys. He's beaten some good teams in this league. So give a man a shot in one of the better offensive systems. Although this year hadn't been great. Get the ball to Jordan Mason for crying out loud. So listen, it's a beat-up 49ers team. It's a Buffalo Bills team at home at Orchard Park. It's one of the hardest places to win in the National Football League, especially in the second half of seasons when the Bills really get it rolling off of a bye. I always say great coaches off of a bye. It's hard to beat. Andy Reid's like the greatest coach in the history of the league off a bye. Sean McDermott is not a great coach. I don't believe that. I think he's toward the top of the B tier of coaches in the NFL. I've called him Mark Jackson, and I love Mark Jackson to death. Many times on the show. Great culture builder, can get you to a certain point. I'm not totally sure he can get to the next level. Maybe proves me wrong this year because, again, I think the Bills right now are clearly the biggest threat to Kansas City. They beat the darn Chiefs again this year. Listen, without Nick Bosa, Jordan Love ran roughshod, was torching the 49ers for 60 minutes. Josh Jacobs had 3 touchdowns in that game. Expect a big James Cook output. Josh Allen's going to do his thing. Bills in this matchup, no question about it, by double digits, 27-17. I'm just putting up 17 out of the assumption that Purdy plays. My gut tells me he probably gives it a go. Will he finish? How will he feel physically? I have no idea, but this is a Bills defense. Von Miller's been doing his thing. This is a defense that can get after the quarterback. That's bad news, especially if Trent Williams still isn't healthy. It could be a very long night for the San Francisco 49ers. So, Buffalo again. By the way, that was my final. I forgot to mention that. That was my final game for my favorite segment.
Bettin Man.
If I were a betting man, give me the Buffalo Bills over the San Francisco 49ers -7. Big line, I get it, but I think the 49ers are absolutely cooked. Shanahan has worst year. The roster's beat up. The schedule is just brutal down the stretch. They're cooked. I don't care how close that division is. They're cooked. So listen, great show today. Listen, we start the show talking about Matt Eberflus. Then he gets fired 30 minutes later. So we have breaking news during the show. Talk about the Cowboys. They won on Thanksgiving. That's, by the way, 3 straight wins for the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. What else we talked? Oh, we talked about the least shocking game in the history of the 2024 season with the Packers blowing out a Dolphins team. By the way, Tua was actually good. Again, I said this early in the show. I had no problems with Tua. He had zip on the ball. He moved well. I knew the Dolphins. I said this in my take early in the show, and it'll go on YouTube. I knew the Dolphins were dead when I saw them during the national anthem. When Tua had the big old jacket over him, I'm like, oh, God, the game had to be kicked off and they're freezing. And Mike McDaniel looked miserable in the cold weather. Miserable. We know I get the Packers are used to it. The Dolphins aren't, but the contrast was as stark as it gets. And the Vols are going to beat Vanderbilt and get to the college football playoff. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by on this early edition at noon on Carving Up Live. Be sure to check us out at our normal time back on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. That is our next goal. So please tell your friends about it, your family about it. I'm sure still that people are around their families, around the holidays. We are obviously gearing up towards the Christmas season. Again, we got 2 Santa Claus. They should have had a better season than what they got. We just kind of threw it together at the last minute because to me, listen, I think I'm cool with Christmas spirit and the lights and the music and all the above on November 1st. Like me and Mariah Carey are kind of on that same mindset. I can't hit quite the octaves that Mariah can hit, but we tend to agree on that. But especially once Thanksgiving over, let's go to Christmas, baby. And I love Thanksgiving, by the way, favorite holiday of all time. Hope everybody out there had a happy Thanksgiving. Also, just as importantly, as subscribing to Carve It Up, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. Listen, like I said, we had a lively discussion in the Grid group chat about turkey and Thanksgiving foods. Let me just say, there's some plates on there. Looked mighty good. We're gonna have to get a grid group to a grid get together to maybe for Thanksgiving one of these days. Maybe we could do like a joint show, do like carving it up, all even. Boston Sports Summit. Patrick can be a contributor. As obviously as our article man. Please check out Patrick's newest articles on the Grid's website. He does a fantastic job. Get all the Grid collaborators on the show. That'd be pretty cool. All right, that's all we got today. Everybody stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis in this country. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or, oh, there's only one solution to the problem, both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of detailed, nuanced solutions to solve it. Hopefully, again, I'm sure politics was brought up at many Thanksgivings. I talked about that on Wednesday's show. Hopefully, you didn't get the other person to agree with your position, but to understand it better. We had some productivity in that regard. That's always the goal. Like I said on Wednesday's show, I actually encourage discussions about politics. When else are you going to do it? And how else are we going to come together as a country? Let's do the hard work. Let's do the uncomfortable stuff. Let's get in there and do it now. All right. Hope everybody has a great weekend, a great holiday, Thanksgiving Day weekend. If it's Black Friday, don't go broke, but shop away. Have fun with that. Christmas season's upon us, baby. I'm excited. We're getting the home stretch of the college football season. The regular season's over after tomorrow, outside of Army Navy. Listen, Andy Williams said it best. It's the most wonderful time of the year, baby. We'll see you on Monday. A ton to talk about. God bless y'all. Peace out. Let's finish the job, Vols. Let's go. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.